So the Game Awards kind of suck, right? If we're being perfectly honest at this point, it's not actually an awards show. It's E3, where companies premiere their new shit and give out an award here and there, and the awards are a fucking joke. The entire show this year was split up by how much time was spent on different things by Twitter user @_HayleyElise. And for an awards show, the awards themselves took up a little under 40 minutes of the 3-ish hours. The rest was advertisements and then just an hour of Geoff Keighley filleting Hideo Kojima on the main stage. I like Death Stranding too. That shit's weird as hell and it's interesting, but that being said, it's not the Hideo Kojima show and some awards. It's supposed to be the fucking Game Awards. 2023 is objectively one of the best years for games coming out ever. Possibly the best year. But it was also a year with unprecedented layoffs in the industry. Indie studios shut down, AA studios fired half their staff, AAA studios are getting bought out and downsized by half. This is the kind of thing we won't see immediate repercussions for, but absolutely is heartbreaking, and the kind of thing that's going to show up in 2 or 3 years when things come out more broken than they already do. Delays are going to happen, games are going to get shit canned. You want to know what you didn't hear a single word about at the Game Awards, a show that is supposed to be about recognizing things within the industry? You guessed it, the absurd amount of layoffs. Because if they had talked about it, then Geoff Keighley wouldn't have gotten his precious advertisers, and he wouldn't have a seat at the table with all of these companies. Fuck integrity, we want ad money. Here's an interview Future Games Show had with Ben Starr, who's the voice actor for the main character in Final Fantasy XVI.
Would you say 2023 is the best year for video games?
Honestly, are we going to get serious? I think, yes. It is an amazing year for video games to come out. I think it's not a great year for video games insofar as all of the layoffs. I think it's not great for that, and I think that does need to be spoken about at an event like this. I think we want to celebrate all of these games, but maybe there is something missing because a lot of people who made those games are no longer working at those companies.
That interview is outside of the Game Awards, but inside the Game Awards, they shut down Larian Studios' speech accepting Game of the Year with a please wrap it up sign and fucking rushed Neil Newbon off the stage with music.
I want to say thank you so much for seeing us. I appreciate it. You're not alone in this. None of us are. Thank you.
Neil is an amazing person. His story is amazing, and he's been amazing far before BG3 blew up. He actually rated me on Twitch when I was playing Resi 8 a while ago, and seeing his success from the sidelines has been fantastic. So what does the best performing actor in the Game of the Year that is most likely a once-in-a-decade kind of game get for treatment? Pushed off the stage so Geoff could peddle gamer subs to the masses. Fuck this guy. He wants so badly to be validated by a group of people that don't give a fuck about him, and in the process he takes advantage of and discards the devs that even gave him his platform in the first place. A platform that's supposed to be an awards show about them. Before we get some Geoff Keighley defenders in here saying some of the dumb shit I've heard on Twitter like, oh, it's not that bad, or oh, it's just this year, I disrespectfully disagree. The Game Awards function very well as an advertisement platform for new and upcoming games, but that is the limit of their function as they currently are. They are an utter failure in every other one of the purposes they are supposed to be fulfilling, and it wasn't just this year. This year is just the worst that it's ever been. Just because some dipshit holds a mic does not mean we have to listen, and it's about time that they make it the game previews or some shit, because the awards are a joke. They refuse to recognize indie games. They don't have enough categories, they don't give enough awards, and they absolutely do not respect the people making these games whatsoever. In case this somehow makes its way in front of Geoff's crusty ass eyes, I want to be genuine for a second. You are not a bad person, Geoff, but you are way, way too big for your britches. You are nothing without the devs making the games, and you need to show them some goddamn respect. Quit being a fucking coward. Now let's have some fun, because I hate being negative in videos. Earlier I said just because some dipshit holds a mic and wants you to listen doesn't mean you should, but I'm well aware that I'm also just some dipshit holding a mic, and I hope you'll listen to this. I have painstakingly gone through everything I've played this year, which when I last checked was well over 200 games. Jesus fucking Christ. And I broke it down into the best of the best. I'm not skimping on indie games, I'm not skimping on AAA, I'm just putting together a list of the best and the worst shit that came out this year. There will be some noticeable absences from the list this year because I don't own a PS5, sorry to Spider-Man and Final Fantasy 16, and because frankly buying every AAA game that comes out is fucking expensive, and I'm only one person that is not yet internet rich, so I missed a couple that are on screen now. I am going to do my best to respect the effort that went into these games and really represent the best of the best year for releases in gaming in a long time. And I will also be as disrespectful as necessary to the worst dog shit to come out this year. Welcome. I am not absolutely sure, and this is the first annual edition of Not a Real Game Awards Show. There's a timestamp on screen if you want to skip to the full Game of the Year list proper, but before we get to the cream of the crop, I want to rapid fire some honorable mentions because there is a boatload of games that didn't make my list that still kicked ass. BattleBit Remastered took over the entirety of the gaming world for about a month, and it was hilarious seeing Dude Bro Tarkov streamers playing a Roblox-ass game and being like, yeah man, this game is sick. And to be entirely fair, it was pretty sick. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk delivered as being the spiritual successor that Jet Set Radio deserved, and it did so well that Sega went and greenlit an official reboot of Jet Set Radio that looks, well, it'll certainly be a video game. Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood was this weird, witchy visual novel where literally every single character is a lesbian, and it has one of the best OSTs to come out in 2023, which is saying something in a year full of fantastic soundtracks. I checked out Cruelty Squad this year, and it hurts my eyes, but it makes my heart happy. Dead Space Remake came out, and if the original didn't hold up so well, the remake would have been on my list for sure. For some people, Dead Space Remake was 100% their game of the year, and I'm here for it. Gunbrella gives you an umbrella that shoots 12 gauge, Bannerlord 2 was fun. Here's a good one. My Friendly Neighborhood is from the two non-David Szymanski brothers, and it's basically classic Resident Evil on the set of Sesame Street, and it's probably one of the most creative games that came out this year. Fucking keys. Oh my god! Fighting game fans got what they wanted this year with Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter 6 coming out. Both games are awesome, and I'm awful at them. The finals got sneakily launched with their announcement happening at the Game Awards, and despite some problems it definitely has, it's hard to deny they made a damn fun game. Jusant is a great way to experience rock climbing if you don't want to actually experience rock climbing. Voidigo is really good, World of Horror was good. I finally played Uncharted 4 on PC, and that was great. House Flipper 2 is dope, Splunky 2 also dope. Forspoken was a game. The dialogue is as bad as you've heard in that one.
Did I just do that?
Quick, put this on.
Three games end up on the Wall of Shame this year, and while there was a ton of terrible games that came out, these are the ones that I played and disliked the most. First is Forspoken, for being annoyingly close to being an okay game, but shooting itself in the foot with obnoxious dialogue at literally every opportunity and an unbelievably unlikable main character. Frey is a manic pixie dream girl if you forget to add the pixie or the dream girl parts, so she's just manic and like really, really mean to everyone all the time for no reason. Redfall ends up on the Wall of Shame for being an absolute hunk of dog shit. I adore some of Arcane Studios' work, like Prey 2016 is to this day one of the most underrated games of all time, but it's hard to deny the slow decline of Arcane, and Redfall is the culmination of that. Live service games are rough to begin with, but this abandoned pretty much everything that Arcane was good at for the sake of an awful story in an empty world with broken AI, and on top of all that, the game ran like ass. It was so bad that at one point it stopped recognizing my graphics card, so it tried running the game entirely off my CPU, and even though I was only one quest away from finishing the game at that point, I dropped it for the sake of saving my PC. In another timeline, this game could have been pretty fun, but in this timeline, it's just depressing. The final game on the Wall of Shame this year is one that surprised even me, but the more time and space that I have away from Starfield, the less I like it. I made a video a while ago clowning on this clown for complaining about pronouns in the character select, and the joke in that video titled How to Enjoy Starfield is to just close the tab. Don't read the review bombing, don't listen to idiots like Baby Turd here.
Fucking pronouns!
That being said, I didn't enjoy Starfield. It started really slow, but fine, as most Bethesda games do, but then tons of tiny things just added up to the breaking point. They took the 1000 planets thing seriously, and that's fine and all, but it's a lot less enjoyable when scrolling the map is a chore and it takes 4 fast travels and 4 loading screens just to get to the next step of a quest. In a game with a zillion quests, that gets old after about 10 hours. I played for 25, mostly doing side content because it was more enjoyable than the main game. But the problem with taking a Bethesda game and stretching that content over 1,000 planets is that you end up experiencing things in a very disjointed way. Some people really like this game, and I'm happy for them, but it's very much not for me, and Bethesda really has some trust to earn back for Elder Scrolls 6. If I'm being honest with their recent catalog, it really feels like the Bethesda we knew and loved might be gone. This was just some of the great stuff and not so great stuff that I played this year. And to be honest with you, there was about 1,000 indie games that launched this year I wanted to try and I just didn't get around to or couldn't afford. $20 a game isn't bad, but it adds up when you're buying 1,000 games and already have a backlog the size of a small country. So for now, I think it's time we get into the meat and potatoes of this video. These next games are the best of the best in a wildly good year of games. These are the best games that I played in 2023. One of the hills I will always choose to die on is that the majority of the games we played as kids have aged like garbage. That in and of itself isn't a particularly abrasive statement, but saying that most old games suck when you play them now without the rose-colored glasses can be a bit much. I'd never say that, but some people might. Lunacid is a great example of taking the style and ideas of older games and breathing new life into them to bring ancient genres from before the dawn of TikTok into the spotlight for new generations to try. I have never personally played a Kingsfield game, but I've played quite a few of FromSoft's other titles, and somehow Kira managed to capture the vibes you get playing those games in this fantastic little indie gem. The exploration is frankly fantastic, and it gives me the same feeling I got exploring in the Dark Souls games the first time I ever played them. If you're hesitant seeing the art style, trust me when I say this game is completely doable even if old games are not your style. The environment design and soundtrack kicks ass, and there's just a ton of quirky little secrets to find, to the point that I never went longer than a few minutes without finding something new and interesting to interact with. Lunacid is a flawed gem with some wonky boss fights and occasional pitfalls that come with the games modeled after classical RPGs and dungeon crawlers, but it's a gem nonetheless and absolutely worth your time. If you were to tell me that one of my favorite games to pick up and play in the year of our Lord 2023 was a tiny indie puzzle game that tells you that you will not be able to beat it 100% of the time on the main menu, I'd tell you to go fuck yourself. Oddly enough though, your weird prediction would have been right, because Moselina is a blast. The game does a fantastic job at making it feel like you've gamed the system. Winning always feels like you've bent the mechanics presented to you to their absolute limit, and it really lives up to its self-described genre definition of being a hostile interpretation of the immersive sim. You're provided with a randomized set of tools to solve a randomized set of puzzles, and sometimes the tools just won't work. But win or lose, Moselina is always a good time, not to mention the killer art direction and sound design. I have a full video on this one linked to the top of your screen if you want a more in-depth look. This game costs $5 though. That's less than a cup of Starbucks coffee, so just trust me, bro, and go play it. Now, if you were to tell me that not one, but 2 puzzle games made my Game of the Year list in the year of our Lord 2023, I mean, fuck off. I hate puzzles. It's practically my motto at this point, but here we are at number 12 with Cocoon, the brainchild of Jeppe Carlsen, who was the lead gameplay designer behind Limbo and Inside. Rarely can I say this for any game, let alone a puzzle game, because I usually get stuck and frustrated, but without any real signposting or tutorializing, Jeppe Carlsen and their team managed to keep a steady rate of progression and engagement cover to cover in what turned out to be a gorgeous 4 to 5 hour journey. Fantastic doesn't even begin to encompass just how impressive the art and sound design is in this game. I think this is one of those games that'll be all over the hidden indie gem lists in a couple years once YouTubers get around to it, because Cocoon is extremely deserving of love and wildly underrated. Rarely does a game do anything to really impress me enough to mention it as far as game design goes, but not only does the world within a world jumping between realities mechanic make for a visual feast, it's also really clever. The reason I'm so impressed with this game is that I was able to learn complex mechanic without a single word on screen. They just did such a good job guiding the player that you just kind of stumble into the solutions. Not without thinking a bit, but I never felt stuck, and that's an accomplishment on its own for a puzzle game when faced with a dipshit like me. I am 100% behind whatever the hell Jeppe Carlsen decides to make next, if this is the level of quality that we can expect from him. I don't think I've ever seen a game attempt to cross as many genre boundaries as Dave the Diver does, and manage to stick the landing, but somehow the team at Mint Rocket managed to do it. It's a diving game, a fishing game, a collectathon, a restaurant manager, a stealth game, a farming game, and like 8 other genres that I'm forgetting. But somehow they were able to mesh that all together into one cohesive product that looks, sounds, and plays fantastic. It's hard to point to any one area of Dave the Diver and say this part of the game is going above and beyond the best in slot for its genre, but I don't think I could point to any part of it and find it lacking either. The absence of bad does not mean something's good, but the good here is really, really good. It's astounding to me that they were able to include so many different branching and overlapping mechanics into one game without it feeling overwhelming. There's always something to do, but there's never too much to do. Dave the Diver is 100% a triumph of a game that is worth playing just for the funny anime-style cutscenes alone. Earlier in the video, I said that fighting game fans got what they wanted this year, but I really think 2024 was a renaissance for horror games. 4 of the games on this list fall under the horror category, and while I only have it at number 10, I think Amnesia: The Bunker might be the most slept-on horror game to come out this year. More than any other game I played this year, Amnesia: The Bunker made me uneasy and easily got the most jump scares out of me, which is impressive considering there was only like 1 scripted jump scare. The rest is just the AI on their terrifying monster. The resource management is difficult, but not complex. Keeping the lights on is a challenge, and it only goes so far to protect you. The immersive sim elements do wonders for empowering you as the player to approach the situations presented to you however you see fit, and the game randomizes where the objectives are placed so your run and your friend's run won't be the same. It's short, sweet, and surprisingly stressful, which is what most indie horror games should aspire to be. Tears of the Kingdom was my most hyped game coming into 2023, so the fact that it's fallen this far down the list is kinda nuts to me, but there's a good reason for it. Breath of the Wild is probably my favorite game. Full stop. Aside from the absurdly forgettable story in that game, there is a ridiculously good vibe the entire world has. Walking around and exploring in Breath of the Wild can feel magical, like a Ghibli movie coming to life, just with more goblins walking around. Tears of the Kingdom is an enhanced version of Breath of the Wild. It takes everything Breath of the Wild does and amps it up to 11, and yet a not insignificant amount of people, myself included, still prefer Breath of the Wild to its sequel. Why? Well, think of Zelda like a pizza. You love pizza, and Breath of the Wild is like a perfectly balanced margarita pizza. It's scientifically designed to instill those happy feelings on your taste buds. Except someone walks by and spits on the pizza. That spit, that's the story in Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom is also a pizza, but it's a meat lover's pizza where the chef in the back went a little overboard on the toppings. Individually, you might love all of the toppings: pepperoni, meatball, sausage, bacon. Oh, fuck yeah. But altogether, if you add too much, the pizza gets floppy and greasy as hell. Tears of the Kingdom to me is still an amazing game, but oddly enough, it is a case of too much of a good thing. The feeling you would get walking around in Breath of the Wild isn't the same as Tears of the Kingdom, because here you walk 2 feet and Link's twink ass gets slapped by a bunch of hands with eyeballs on them. There's still a ton of gorgeous vistas to visit, and the work they did transforming the overworld of Breath of the Wild into a giant 3-tiered map that actually represents time passing in the world is insane. For some people, this game will absolutely be their game of the year, and I completely understand. That is a totally valid take. But for me, it's a greasy ass pizza. I love greasy pizza, but it does give me diarrhea sometimes. The original Resident Evil 4 is something that I did not grow up with, so when I played it for the first time a few years ago, I didn't really like it all that much. It felt like the weird middle child between the classic Resident Evil style of 1 and 2 and the modern style with 7, 8, and 2 Remake. We don't talk about this one. It was clunky, monotone, and just kind of weird, and while there were parts I liked without the nostalgia factor, it just didn't hold up that well for me because it is that weird stepchild in the Resident Evil series. It was the first of its kind, absolutely, but just because something is the first of its kind doesn't make it any less clunky almost 20 years later. And here we are, almost 20 years later, and Resident Evil 4 Remake somehow managed to appease people that loved the original and people like me that didn't love the original so much. Every part of this game is the RE engine firing on all cylinders. It looks better, plays better, and it's a lot faster paced than the original without losing the feel or the charm. They added a ton of little things to contribute to the style and the quirkiness, and it all meshes together so well while maintaining that iconic identity of Leon being a badass that also wears cat ears sometimes. It's also kind of difficult sometimes, but the difficulty curve is great, and it's never too overwhelming without giving you the tools to manage what they're throwing at you. Ashley also isn't an obnoxious character in this version, like she doesn't perpetually have a death wish. Even if that was the only change they made from the original to the remake, I think this would have been a success. Sometimes a game gets announced that scratches such a peculiar itch in your brain that it feels like the dev team summoned eldritch beings to peer into your soul and make a game for you specifically. And that would make a lot of sense to me when it comes to Dredge, the eldritch horror fishing game. The balancing act required to pull both the cute and cozy crowd as well as the eldritch horror gremlins into a Dragon Ball fusion is frankly amazing, and Black Salt Games knocked it out of the park here. The low poly cel shaded art does so much heavy lifting, but the music and the atmospheric ambiance is fantastic. It amazes me how well they managed to have the progression move through the game, because what starts out as a rinky-dink little pontoon boat turns into a full-scale fishing operation before you know it, and the dark waters go from something you fear to something you challenge. The story is unobtrusive, but it's interesting enough, and most importantly, the fishing in this game is so fun. There's been free updates and DLC coming down the pipe, so if you somehow managed to avoid playing Dredge until now, here's your sign to fix that. From Software is one of those companies that some people adore and some people avoid like the plague. I am a convert in that I hated them at first, then I beat all of their games, and now I buy whatever they put out on day one. So despite having never played an Armored Core game before, I had trust that whatever FromSoft was going to make was going to be sick with the level of quality I typically expect from them. And at number 6 on the list, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon did not disappoint. I played this shit on day one, and I would like to formally announce my status as goated with the sauce. I earned the t-shirt for beating pre-nerf Balteus. you. Fuck your stupid little bitch baby rocket bullshit. Oh my god. For someone who's never touched a mech game before, Balteus gave my butthole a good resizing. There's just so many goddamn missiles. But before and after Balteus, this game is gorgeous to look at, and the combat is lightning fast. The crazy thing is, if you ask armored core vets like my man Dirk Donk over on Twitch, this isn't even the fastest armored core game. There's a lot to love here, and I adore the way they allow for mech customization to drive you to iterate your build and tailor it to the mission ahead of you rather than just having to commit to a certain style and pray it works forever. From Software yet again proved themselves as one of the absolute best developers out there and one of the only companies I will actually pre-order from. I feel like if I had any skills in game development and then I did a shitload of cocaine and went on a bender for a few days with Microsoft Paint and like Takeout, Pizza Tower is the game that I would make. A lot of times with games that have such ridiculously iconic art direction, the game itself can be kind of lacking. It might look real nice, but it doesn't play real nice. Cuphead was for a long time the exception to that rule, and now it's joined by Pizza Tower because holy shit is this game fun to play. As my friend Michael put it, Pizza Tower is what Sonic the Hedgehog wishes it was. Peppino is a fucking animal, and gunning it through the levels at 600 miles an hour feels absurdly natural when you consider just how fast you can get going sometimes. This is also my soundtrack of the year, by the way. The music in Pizza Tower is possibly one of the best OSTs out there. All the music is so funky and fitting and fun, and that's kind of the vibe you get from this game. Platforming levels themselves are a jam, but the boss fights? Oh my god, they are so fun. It is challenging and surprising and everything that I would want from platformers boss battles. Pizza Tower manages to nail both sides of the coin, because with something like Cuphead, I don't really love the platforming levels and I kind of wish it was just a boss rush. But with Pizza Tower, it didn't matter which half of a level I was playing, I was having a good time. There's tons of energy in all the animations and backdrops. Because you're moving so fast, it can be hard to really take all that in, which is probably why I only found one of the secret levels. Pizza Tower is one of those games that spent a whole lot of time and effort trying to seem like it was low effort, but the clear care that went into emulating the 90s and early 2000s Cartoon Network visual style exposes the dev team as actually giving a shit. They gave a lot of shit. This game rocks, and $20 for something this high in quality is frankly insane. Quit putting it off and go play it. Now I'm curious, do you have that one game that all your friends tell you to play and you're always like, yeah, I will, and it sits on your wish list forever and then you play it and immediately regret putting it off for so long? Ultra Kill is that game for me, and the fact that I'm putting an early access game that isn't even done yet at number 4 should tell you something. This is probably one of the best first-person shooters on the market right now, and it's only got 2/3 of the content that's going to have when it's done. The entire game was just the mechanic where you flip a coin and then you have to shoot the coin to ricochet it for massive damage. This would make my Game of the Year list, but beyond that coin, there's like 400 more mechanics that all add up to a game with the most absurd ability to whoop ass in the hands of the player that I've ever seen. Seriously, the skill cap in this game is something that I don't even know if we've seen yet. There's documentaries on the speedrun progression of one stage in one level. They have a boss that kicks your ass on your first playthrough, beaten so badly that he doesn't even get to move. He just dies off spawn. If nothing else, Ultra Kill is stylish as hell, and Gianni Matrigano as Gabriel, I mean, come on. The Gabriel fights are just insanity, and the best part about buying Ultra Kill is that when you finish the game, you get to join the rest of the community in badgering Hikita to add gay robot sex in a future update. I didn't forget. I'm sick of losing to you. I'm done dying here. I'm tired of being your little bitch.
May your L's be many and your bitches few.
I made a video earlier in the year about how disappointing I found Lords of the Fallen, and on that video I got 3 kinds of comments. The first was comments agreeing with me, or calling the game shitty poopy caca and being mad about it. The second type of comment was people upset that I had insulted the best game ever made, Lords of the Fallen, and telling me that a curse had been put upon my family for making the video. But the third kind of comment I got ignored almost entirely what was said in the video, and it just told me to try Lies of P. I am very thankful for these comments because I didn't care too much for the demo when I tried it, and without these comments, I very well might have skipped one of the best games to come out this year. There's an incredible amount of enemy variety for a Souls-like that is genuinely impressive. The game also does something that will have FromSoft fans seething. They tell a story. Like they actually tell a story, not a crazy one, but a fun one that you don't have to learn entirely through item descriptions. If From Software decides to do this anytime soon, Vati Vidya is going to be out of a career. Now, while the exploration is a lot more linear in Lies of P than proper capital F FromSoft games, it actually contributes to shortening the gap between my personal favorite part of Souls games: the amazing boss fights. There's almost no stinkers in this game. Every boss is designed to push you in a direction and test how you engage with the mechanics. You can either deflect or dodge, and it's not only fun to perfect both, but enemy types and bosses exist in this game that nudge you towards using one or the other. And eventually, there are enemies that throw down the gauntlet and incentivize using both for different attacks, testing your ability to read what's being thrown at you and then respond appropriately. This game is pretty rough by the end of it, in a good way though. The difficulty curve is fantastic. Noah Caldwell-Gervais has a 2-part series on both the Souls trilogy and the Souls Inheritors, which, by the way, go watch those videos. He's probably the best writer currently using his skills for YouTube. But in those videos, he talks a lot about how in Dark Souls and Elden Ring in particular, there's a lot of room for difficulty customization based on the builds and methods that you index into, even if there's no easy, medium, hard on the start menu. You can do things that trivialize the game if that's fun for you, or you can run in naked with a big club. The choice is yours. Lies of P gives you so many options that if you are really struggling with the core gameplay, you can amp yourself up in 20 different ways and use a bunch of different tools that each boss is specifically weak to in order to really set yourself up to win. This is especially important in the endgame, as if you were summoning, the summon becomes a lot less helpful, and in the final fight of the secret ending, you can't summon at all. The devs, I think, realized how hard this final fight is and even added a pussy out button for if you hit that wall and just want to go back to the other ending. Lies of P might be number 3 on this list, but this is probably the game I had the most fun with this year. Please, do yourself a favor, don't sleep on this one. In 2023, my game of the year is a game that I think genuinely is the kind of game we get once a decade. Baldur's Gate 3 is an overwhelming triumph on all fronts, and no matter how many times I went over the list in my head, I couldn't put anything above it. It might be the boring choice as far as the game of the year list goes, but saying the best game to come out this year was anything other than Baldur's Gate 3 would have frankly been a lie. I am positive that you've heard your coworkers, your cousins, your friends, and everyone else tell you about all the little things this game does well, and I would be hard-pressed to truly summarize how fantastic it is. But I'll use an anecdote to try and communicate that. I had never played a D&D game before, so I chose a bard for my first playthrough, and through circumstance, I ended up romancing Shadowheart. I got quite literally 50 hours in, halfway through the game, and realized that the character I wanted to romance, Karlach, was locked because I'd messed up her quest chain. So I started an entirely new character, a warlock this time, and played through the entire game just to romance Karlach because I found her character so compelling. Also, abs. I didn't for a second feel like I was retreading old ground. I didn't get bored. I actually think BG3 is a game that gets better on the second and third playthroughs. And now at the end of the game, in the final quests, I'm genuinely already thinking about what kind of character run I'll try and do next time. The different choices I'll make and all the bajillion different things I'll get to try. Baldur's Gate 3 isn't charging $70. It's a $60 game. There's no microtransactions. They have every single line in this game voice acted by real people, cough cough, owned by a $17 billion company, cough cough. And for one playthrough, you can expect about 100 hours worth of gameplay. One of the only games I've played in recent times that made turn-based combat tolerable for my TikTok-addled brain. And they are adding free content updates as we speak, putting more in the game for no extra charge. Baldur's Gate 3 succeeding shouldn't scare anyone in the games industry. It should be a signpost. Cut it out with the Battle Royale shit. Stop making every game live service and get back to making high-quality single-player games. Give us some good co-op games. If you just make a good game, it'll sell. Not everything needs a ranking system or a battle pass. Sometimes you just need a game that's some good shit. And that's what Baldur's Gate 3 is. That's what the real accomplishment here is. Baldur's Gate 3 is just a copious amount of good shit. If you've made it this far in the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also leave in the comments what your game of the year was. If I missed a game that you really liked, I promise it wasn't because I hate that game or you. I'm just one guy though, and I can only afford and play so many games in a year. There's tons of awesome stuff slated for next year that I'm looking forward to. I mean, Silk Song, Pacific Drive, Animal Well, Hades 2, Big Walk, Hyper Lightbreaker. 2024 is going to kick ass as far as indie games go, and I'm going to do my best to showcase the best that comes out this year. For now, though, thank you for watching.